here we have spawning in the red on the east side is Szalami playing as the Rus. And who do we have spawning in the west playing as the English?
It's Simtom in the blue, and we are excited to see him. Very skilled player. Someone in the chat reminding us that I think Simtom came quite close to qualifying for the Red Bull Wololo, actually. So played a lot more Age of Empires 4 than I knew. And like I said, one of those players who I had seen play for quite some time back in AoE 3. Now, this, although we do have another English Rus matchup, and it is on Mediterranean, things are going to be playing out differently. For one, spawns are much, much further away. So the English are much less incentivized to go for that Vanguard man-at-arm rest. For two, the English player has thrown down a dock. So that is also going to make things a little different.
Right. Deja vu. It's kind of like right track, wrong train almost, because seeing an English dock lets us talk about it just a little bit more. Again, like you said before, having the 10% reduction in some of these boats here, with the fishing boat only 67 wood, which you might not think is that much. Like, yeah, it's, it's 8 wood. What's the big deal? But when you make 10 fishing boats, it lets you have an extra one.
Percentages can be weirdly deceiving. You think about like the French town center bonus is only a 10% construction time bonus, right? But over time, that starts to make a pretty big deal, especially when you get multiple town centers up. And, we start talking about it all the time about how the French have more villagers than you think because they build their stuff 10% faster. So 10% deduction in cost, not anything to laugh at. The other thing that is important to remember for the English is they get Admiralty, which is an upgrade in their dock that allows them to have further range than their counterparts. Now, I'm not sure exactly how that works out because Lodgia attack ships are not your average fishing ships, or attack ships, I should say. So I'm not sure if the English still end up outranging Russian boats or not. But one way or another, it will be helpful for the English player if they're able to get that online. So they are not quite as land-focused as you may be intended to think at first glance.
Yeah, you are right. I am looking at the Lodgia fishing boat in the ship, and to be honest, this is one of my favorite units in the game. The Lodgia fishing boat. Their ability, like we said before, to teleport some of those, all of their fish resources back to the dock is just fantastic. And when you have enough of those boats to establish some kind of navy going into feudal is going to be very, very important because, one, yes, they do the transformation, but secondly, because of the dock upgrades, and I want to alert this to everybody's attention, the galleys for the Rus and the attack ships, they do cost food. So having a food economy means that your navy can be supported. Having the new changes to the way navies actually develop now means a little less in the way of snowbally in terms of demo ships, and the fact that you need to get 3 resources consistently to get your navy going. So these fishing boats having more of an impact than they usually do.
We're also, because we have further away spawns than we did in our last Mediterranean map, we also have a greater capacity for walling to come out, especially at about the halfway point across the map. There are some excellent positions where you can easily wall from the edge of the map to a group of trees and from the group of trees to the water. So making it much easier for players to wall up and play defensive should they choose to. And what is that coming from the English player? We never see this. Talk about this landmark for me, Tim.
Oh my, what's going on today? We're getting all these different landmarks, but we do have the Abbey of Kings from Simtom coming out as the English player, and I'm going to hover over it just because I know a lot of people, Abbey of memes, lol, but do you actually know what it does? Heals all nearby friendly units that are out of combat by +6 for every 1.0 second. Now, read that again. Nearby friendly units. It doesn't matter if those units are in water or on land, and they heal by 6 every second. So what I think what Simtom is trying to do, we will see a lot of navy battles in feudal age, but a lot of times what happens is we have skirmishes in the middle of the Mediterranean. We have a lot of damaged ships these ships can come back to the Abbey of Kings and end up getting healed a lot quicker to really lay on the aggressiveness to Szalami and the Rus player. What do you think about this strategy?
I absolutely love it because if I'm not mistaken, the healing from the Abbey of Kings stacks with the repair of a dock, right? Moving your ship close to a dock repairs them. I believe that stacks with the Abbey of Kings. So low health units that are, oh, you can see the Lodgia fishing boats have moved out. They're fishing just off the coast of the English territory. They're about to be turned into attack ships so they can attack at a moment's notice. But what this is going to mean is that low health units are going to have to be repaired by villagers. That's going to cost wood for the Rus. That it will not be the case for the English because they will heal up so fast by moving close to these docks and the Abbey of Kings. Now, the first galley is out. Second a hulk is coming out as well. But because the Rus can immediately turn 3 ships at once into attack ships, they're going to have the advantage in the short term in terms of military production because the English have to produce them 2 at a time. They do have 2 docks, so it is 2 at a time. But this Abbey of Kings is going to be coming in clutch, trying to keep everything alive. The first ship going down for the English, but there is no such repair coming out here for the Rus. So defender's advantage in a big way coming out for the English. Look at how long that hulk is staying alive. It's actually repairing faster than the arrow ship can do damage to it.
Yeah, and a lot of that is because of the fishing boats too, adding that little bit of repair that they like to do. The Rus Navy turns into 1 attack ship and will have to scurry away. It looks like Szalami does have a second dock, so he'll be able to pump out units. But I think Simtom had this strategy going in. He knew that Rus were going to be able to transform their ships in the feudal age. They're going to take it to the English docks. Having the Abbey of Kings in the back, along with some dock healing, along with some fishing boat healing, means that because he was only able to transform, 2 ships, 1 attack ship, 1 hulk, it just wasn't enough to get through the healing. So now Simtom is able to stabilize just a little bit, and maybe he could take the attack to the Rus docks.
Yeah. I mean, the defender's advantage is going to be quite strong on both sides, but the early damage that Szalami was hoping to put onto Simtom is non-existent. He maybe lost 1 fishing ship. I wasn't paying super close attention, but I don't think he lost any, and he lost a couple of attack ships. But now the actual count in terms of ships is actually in favor of the English for the time being in terms of actual warships. So they're in a really good spot right now, and Szalami is not having the lead that I think a Rus player hopes to gain when you pick Rus on Mediterranean. You really want to come out further ahead than Szalami was able to right there.
Oh, yeah, exactly. In that first, minute and a half, you want to use that transformation to your advantage, and I don't think there was enough that paid off. When it comes to economy on the backside, however, Szalami did go for the Kremlin again, and it does have a good range where if Simtom were to take the attack to the Rus shore, it would be very difficult because the Kremlin would be able to fire its arrows and do what it likes to do. So I think we're going to have a little bit of a stalemate on both sides, and I think this is going to transition into a longer game because a lot of the times on Mediterranean, there are some games that are over in 9 minutes because one navy ends up snowballing. I don't think we're going to see that this game.
I don't think we're going to see that this game either, but let's talk about who you think that favors. Because I have an opinion, but I want to hear yours first.
Oh, sure. Definitely English. I mean, the longer the game goes when you're playing English, the better for you. Especially because we're going to get to a point in the later stages where, yes, this Rus economy with their fishing boats might do a little bit better in the food per minute category, but Simtom is going to be able to do English things, sit in turtle, go imperial, get your enclosures, take the battle to them at, the 30 to 35th minute, where they can just endlessly spam units that the Rus can't do anything about because they got to go find outside Gaia resources like this gold vein, and they're going to get farther and farther away as the game progresses.
Absolutely. Highlighting everything I was going to say, but I didn't have to say it. Thank you so much there. As we see the the battle beginning here between Szalami and Simtom, the skirmish has struck up once again. Simtom getting just a little bit too big for his britches, moving out further than Szalami was comfortable with, and he says, hey, get back on your own side. It's like those old sitcom episodes where they would do a tape down the middle of the room. This is that. There's tape down the middle of the Mediterranean, and Szalami's like, hey, hey, get back on your own side.
And Simtom's trying to go over that tape again, landing on some of the Rus side of that red tape. It looks like good amount of Hulks, good amount of galleys. Rus do have a nice little loaded demolition ship in the back, but it looks like Simtom, out of the range of the Kremlin, will be taking just a straight-up Navy fight, and it's looking good for him if he's able to take out this demo ship. And it looks like no damage from that demo ship as it explodes, so good job from Simtom with the micro. It looks like fishing boats are up in the front too, just trying to take a little bit of DPS away from the Hulks and some of the archer ships that are actually there. Szalami's trying to crawl back in the game with these demo ships, and it's going to make Simtom have to retreat over to the west. That demo ship taking out 2 ships in the process. That demo ship not having the range for the other one, but he's going to be able to back up to his Abbey of Kings if he's able to.
There was a moment there where Simtom had a concave, and I felt like he was trading much more effectively, but I think he stuck around just a little bit too long. He could have retreated with the wounded ships, healed up very quick thanks to the Abbey of Kings, and come back and finished off a lot of the Rus Navy, but he stuck around a little longer than I think he really wanted to. Ended up losing quite a few ships. Now, there are a lot of Russian ships that have gone down as well, so it's not all bad news. But trading maybe just a little bit more effectively could have put Simtom in just a really dominant position right now. Now, that said, he still is looking really good. There's only a handful of Russian warships remaining here, most of them having gone down. And the English ships heal so dang fast that they can return to the battle really quickly. But I think you want to make sure you have them all kind of up together. Going in one or two at a time piecemeal means you're not going to get too much done with these ships. So Simtom having to turn around and go back between his legs. These 2 Hulks that are moving up, yeah, well played. Recognizing that shouldn't go in alone with those, sending everything back, heal them all up at once, and then go in as one big group.
And that's one of the most important things when it comes to Navy battles, because you hit the nail right on the head there, where Szalami did come out pretty well in that first skirmish, but what's going to kill you in naval battles is overextension. And that's what Szalami did with some of his ships. He ended up losing more ships than he wanted to. Now with military count, looks like he's got 4 attack ships, 4 galleys to Simtom's 6 Hulks with 5 galleys. So, you know, as far as military goes, Simtom is favored right now. And a lot of that is because Szalami did a little overextension, and there could be an evening out had he not done that.
Yeah. So that's you know, really a big play that we're going to have to keep an eye on here is how well is the micro going to be controlled. Obviously, those demo ships going to be a big impact on this game, but also just the micro of getting your wounded ships back to the Abbey of Kings. It does you no good if all of your ships die before you retreat back to them. So that's going to be a big play for Simtom he's going to need to make here. So far, it's coming out well, having lost just a couple ships, but Szalami's starting to reach parity in terms of the amount of attack ships, and here come the demo ships. We see these a lot. Is Simtom going to recognize and try and stop them before they make contact? He does lose a couple ships thanks to the explosion of that first one there. There's another one coming in from the north. Is it going to make contact? There is another counter demo ship coming out here. That one is cleaned up. Is the counter demo ship, the English one, also cleaned up in no man's land, not going to get any value for either of these players. The second one also not going to get any contact. Demo ships coming in left, right, and center. This is what makes water so much more exciting than it used to be. I love how impactful demo ships can be in our new water meta here in Age of Empires 4.
Yeah, it helps you establish a little bit of a foothold in a losing fight. But now that Rus has the clear military lead here, Simtom using some fishing boats trying to recover that Hulk as much as he could. But it looks like with the fishing boats and the dock having a little bit of increased heal, Szalami, we're talking about overextension, and I think we've got a little bit more of an overextension going on here. Szalami is going to be losing more ships than he probably should have. He's got to back away and take his victories instead of licking his wounds like he just did.
Well, I mean, he did lose a couple ships, but he also managed to kill quite a few fishing ships from the English player. And so it's not a total loss. There are a lot of fishing boats here that are not working and are also being killed. And that's what this is really all about. Like, having attack ships, you build them so that you can shut down your opponent's fishing eco, right? And so the more that this fishing eco dies from Simtom, the happier Szalami is. He's okay making these trades when he gets fishing boats in exchange. There's only 4 fishing boats on the field right now for Simtom.
Yeah, and it looks like as far as Szalami goes, he's got 3. I see the Lodya fishing boats up here in the north, but those Lodya fishing boats, they work better than these
They're twice
English
as
fishing
fast.
ships. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, these are 6. Don't be fooled. This is 6 fishing boats for the roost, not 3. You got to always keep that in mind. So the fishing economy is getting rebuilt for the English, and we're reaching somewhat terms of parity again in terms of their food gathering rate. But the demo, look at how scary this Russian fleet is right here. We've got 4 demo ships just waiting to collide with something juicy. We've got lots of arrow ships and a couple Hulk type ships as well on the field for the Rus, able to make sure that the English player isn't going to move out too far from his own docks.
And, you know, you mentioned the demo ships again from the Rus. And one of the things that I really like about these demo ships that can cause slip-ups for people that play against them is they look very similar to some of these other ships. Yes, they have those floating, burning cargo on their ships, but in terms of the look of the attack ships and the Hulks, a lot of them look similar that make it difficult to micro. When it comes to these English demo ships, they kind of just look like fishing boats that are flaming. It's a little bit easier to micro them, and it might not be something you think about as you look at a big Navy battle that looks like it's going to develop in the near future. We could see a little micro slip up on Simtom that can cost them.
I want to point out 2 things before this next battle gets underway. 1, Admiralty has now come in for the English, so they have a range on their side. 2, look at the resource bank for Szalami. He is headed up to Castle, and Simtom is not following him at all. Szalami really looking forward to a tech advantage coming his way, and I think that's going to help him out in a big way. Of course, Simtom going to need to survive the short term in order for it to make that happen. So hopefully that resource disparity not going to happen. That big demo ship coming in, but look at all of them. There's 3 of them coming in. Simtom running for his life. He's terrified of these demo ships. Oh, good connections there. Losing a lot of Simtom ships, and Szalami looking very powerful all of a sudden.
Yeah, that drastically changes the Navy count, and Szalami's just continuing to just pump out demo ships. There's 4 in the queue, looking for any Hulk he possibly can. Another one going down in the south. There's a group of 2 of them, with 1 of them going down here. Not that many Hulks left for Simtom. There is, it looks like 3, with more in the queue as well. Every one of these battles, just because a lot of these Lodya ships that are left are galleys, which are going to be countered by those Hulks, it just seems like we reach stalemate after stalemate here.
That kind of tends to be the water. Water is very defensively favored for both sides, and that's just kind of the way the game is. But the point of what you're doing here is not necessarily to kill every single water unit and then kill all the docks. That hardly ever happens in Age of Empires 4. You will almost never see that. What you're going to see, and what will matter most, is gaining an advantage in the number of units you have gathering food on the water. And that is going to translate into a lead for one side or another on the land. And then we're going to move into a late game land battle. Water will matter less and less as the game goes on. And what you're going to see instead is teams, or both sides, developing a land military using the economy that they built on the water. And so we already see walls coming up for both players on both sides of the Mediterranean. Everybody's trying to wall up all of a sudden because they know that this game is going to transition to a land-based game very soon here. And Szalami is in a really good position for that with that big food bank that he has built up. He just needs to get some gold under his belt so he can go up to Castle.
Yeah, Simtom being super aggressive with those walls, trying to establish a little bit of map control as the English, which usually doesn't happen that well, and when it does, it doesn't happen very effectively, but it looks like he's able to do that with some land raids, also with some horsemen in the south. He does have to micro his navy backward towards his own docks, because Simtom is bringing it to him. Decent amount of Hulks, decent amount of galleys here. It looks like we only have 1 demo ship out of the roost, but it's not really in the context of this battle right now. And Simtom's just having to retreat yet again, giving Szalami the opportunity to get his navy a little bit increased out of the way of the Kremlin. But Salami's boats, again, a little bit of overextension. A lot of those are going to be going down. Good demo ship on 2 of the Hulks if it ends up going off. I hope it explodes at some point.
There we go. There we go.
But it does end up going down. It looks like Szalami, with the fact that he only had 3 of those ships, just with the inclusion of some of those demo ships, looks like we have reached yet another stalemate and yet a lot of shipwrecks in the middle of this Mediterranean.
This is probably one of my favorite things to see players do when it comes to water. It is very easy to get drawn into this trap of he's got attack ships. I have to make attack ships. I have to win the water. You have to win the water, so you just keep throwing resources into the water. Think about how many thousands of resources have now been thrown into the water. The water will not win you the game. It cannot end you the game, because all you have to do is make sure that all of your landmarks are not in range of water. And at some point, you have to transition into a land game. So whichever player is able to more effectively transition water economy into land army is going to be the one who comes out ahead in terms of the long term here. That's what matters. And despite that big food bank that we saw for Szalami, he ends up throwing more and more and more resources into this water game. And that means that Simtom will actually be the one up to castle first. He's going up with the white tower.
Yep, we have a white tower rather defensively by his second town center, which I wanted to bring to your attention in just a moment, but we do have another naval battle that my eyes cannot possibly be removed from this part of the screen. Looks like a decent amount of both galley ships and attack ships from the Roost. He's doing a good job of making sure he's got rock, paper, and scissors essentially covered on the water. Simtom doing not that much of the same with a lot of galleys, not so much in the way of hulks. And if he does not make enough hulks, those galley ships will be easily taken down. Now the demo ships for the Roost not going to be as effective. Those two of them largely staying home in the back, as you see over here on the right side. The hulks are doing a decent amount of cleanup. And as we see here, yet another stalemate, it looks like. But now as the white tower goes up, Simtom is going to have a little bit of economic upgrades and military upgrades in terms that Navy could turn the tide. And plus, the fact that he had a second town center over here on the south, which I will quickly go to with some farms around it. He has had this for a very extensive amount of time. Simtom with an economic lead of 106 to 74, which could translate over to the water as we go into Castle Age.
Simtom's positioned more, and I'll tell you why right now. Simtom, all he has to do right now is produce the bare minimum of warships on the land to incentivize Szalami to continue wasting resources. He then throws all the spare resources he has into a land army, and he can clean up. Look at these production buildings. I want you to see them in the bottom right corner of the map. He has thrown down a ton of land production. He is walled up, Simtom is. He has the walls, he has the land production, he has the Castle Age advantage. You let Szalami have the water at this point, because the more resources Szalami spends on water, the less he is spending on land. You sack the fishing economy on the water, you transition to a land army, and you clean Szalami up. Simtom has the game in his hands right now, if he can pull it off.
Oh yeah, this land rate is absolutely massive in terms of timing, right? Because Szalami is thinking about going to Castle Age. He pulls a bunch of gold villagers to put the high trade house up on the northern part of the map. The issue is he's got men-at-arms in his base breathing down his doorstep, and it looks like Szalami going for some of these wooden fortresses up here and quickly transitioning to land as much as he can, making as many stables. But we'll see if Simtom can actually get the military mass to make a dent. Does go up with Castle Age men-at-arms. And I don't know if Szalami's going to end up getting Castle in time. I think you might be right. And this land mass will end up winning Simtom the game.
Yeah, that water is a means to an end. And that's what a lot of people forget when they play Age of Empires. They feel like they have to win the water. If you lose the water, you lose. That's true in the first 10 minutes. That's not true past 15 minutes. Water cannot end you the game. All of the landmarks, unless they're in range of a Carrack of the water, the enemy has to build land at some point in order to finish you off. And as of right now, Szalami has nothing on the land. Absolutely nothing. And look at these men-at-arms. There's nothing that can stop them. They have so much pierce armor. So Simtom remembering to get the ranged armor on the iron undermesh on his men-at-arms means that he can stay underneath these Kremlins and town centers as long as he wants to. He can idle out the production from Szalami. He is so happy right now. And this this losing the water that he had to sack to get it means nothing because he has a second town center. He's safe from water pushing him. He's got keeps going up to defend him on the backside. Like, he feels so good right now.
Oh yeah, and these men-at-arms are so, just like you said, fantastic just to zerg out to all of these areas. Wooden fortresses just basically shooting marshmallows at these guys. Szalami is going up with some Castle Age technology, has some regular knights which will do good against men-at-arms. Does have an archery range which will be popping out crossbowmen, hopefully getting a mass to take out some of these men-at-arms. But for how much Szalami idled all of his villagers, I saw with an economic count of 82, I saw maybe about 43 that were ending up being idle. So that little bit of time could both translate to not only on land, difficult to make knights that are rather expensive, but translating over to water also, as Simtom has a lot of galleys in queue. So he's looking to win water while creating this land diversion.
Also want to give a quick shout out to Bike Rush, who just rated us with a huge party coming over after his KW tournament. Thank you so much, Bike Rush. Really excited to see you all here. This is the season finale for Age of Empires 4 here on MetaPlays. We have an excellent game on Mediterranean between Simtom and Szalami, and we are having so much fun casting it. It's really starting to heat up here. These battering rams have arrived in force. The zerging you mentioned of these men-at-arms is entering in a big way. Now, Szalami has managed to get a few production buildings in terms of stables up on the north side, so he's not completely defenseless here. Simtom may need to fall back just a little bit, regroup with a larger mass, and move in. He does want to take down structures with these battering rams, but if he loses everything to the defender's advantage of these knights, then this won't have been worth it in the long run.
And that looks like what he's doing. He's actually transitioning to spearmen as well. A lot of spearmen in the queue. But we were so focused on the south part of this land. Look at what's going on in the water. Right on the Roos shore, right near these docks, it looks like we have a large amount of galley ships disrupting the fishing eco of Salami's north docks as well. You could say that this water is getting in the victory of Simtom as well, and as long as Simtom's able to hold his own here on the bottom right part of the screen, it doesn't look like he has a spearman mass to do it though.
Yeah, the defender's advantage is always going to be strong on water, so I don't know that Simtom will ever realistically be able to completely clear Szalami off of water. But what he can do is continue to idle the fishing eco and rebuild his own. Currently, the eco is heavily in favor of the English, and they're okay with that because they want to play the long term. They feel better about playing late game due to English. So as long as they don't die and their eco is favoring them, they're very happy about that. Look at all the idle eco for Szalami. Half of it is idle. 40 of his 80 villagers are doing nothing right now, and Simtom feels great about that.
I thought there was a little bit of a Muscovite revolution over here. It's a lot of the wood. They didn't find anything to chop, but
wouldn't
Szalami...
be the first time.
I know, right? More of a foreshadowing than anything else. But Szalami going to be able, with a wooden fortress here on the south, and is going to be able to take down those production buildings. Simtom not going to be able to make anything out of them, and it will be a lot of wood that turns into shrapnel. But looking back over here on the water, Szalami doing a little bit of holding on his part in the middle of the Mediterranean. It looks like Simtom has not one military ship here on the Mediterranean. So you are exactly right. I called that very early in favor of Simtom because it looks like Szalami has established himself yet another presence on the east side of the Mediterranean here.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about with the trap of water. It matters and it's important, but when it becomes the sole focus of your game, you can get tunnel vision and forget that it does not win you the game in and of itself. The land military does. Water is a means to an end and no more. So one thing to keep in mind, though, as the game enters the later and later stages, is that the English, especially once they head up to Imp, are happy to play like this. They're going to get enclosures at the end. Their farming economy is ripe and juicy. Take a look at all of those beautiful farms in the English base. So Szalami does feel somewhat of a pressure to make this game, if not end, at least find himself in a big favor before too long, because he does not want this to stretch past 40 minutes.
No, and based on the way this is going, it might end up being there. Simtom might say a little bit of a macro issue. He's got about 4,400 gold in the bank. Doesn't have a lot of traders, but does have a lot of gold mines. might want to allocate a little bit of that to food and getting his fishing economy underway, because he can go Imperial and get enclosures if he wants to. I actually think this is a good situation for him to do that, because Szalami's kind of licking his wounds on the land side of it.
Yeah, he's busy taking down all these production structures on the kind of southeast side, which is fine. You do want to get rid of those. You can't leave them there, but it is eating his army's time up for the time being. It's buying time for Simtom to do something else with his resources. Where did all of his food just go? I felt like he had a lot more just a second ago, but yeah, I'd love to see him go up to Imp very soon here. If he doesn't, he needs to get out a big land force and try and make something happen in the short term. Otherwise, the military that Szalami does have is going to break through these walls and start raiding the English villagers.
And it looks like, as far as landmass, you alluded to that perfectly, and that's exactly what he's doing. Simtom adding some more production buildings, not on that southeast, but does have about 14 men-at-arms and crossbowmen with a lot more in queue. He's adding some knights as well, so it looks like what he's doing with that food economy that you saw disappear just a little bit turn into a land mass that he's looking to take to the Rus. And in that part, because we talked about Imperial a little bit, there's a put up or shut up time here. In terms of, you know, making units and taking a castle or going Imperial. But do you like his Castle Age idea?
I do. When you're floating that much gold, you can do both. Like, he is not in a position where he's struggling for gold. Build a market, buy 1,000 food, and go up while you're producing. You can't. There's no reason not to do both when you have that much gold lying around.
Yeah, and Szalami is just losing some of those navy on the east side. Villagers coming over to take down this cheeky ram up north. 4 English knights are over here, so we'll take a little bit of losses to economy. Economy in the favor of Simtom, 131 to 84. And in terms of military, he's able to change it into a military, having a lead of 69 nice to 27.
Very nice amount of military coming out here for Simtom. We're going to have to see if that can translate to a win for him. Burning down through these fortified palisade walls on the south side while raiding with his ships on the north side. So Szalami's forces are stretched really thin right now. Knights are very powerful, but they're not very big in number because they're so expensive to build. So you got to remember that in terms of the military production, that they are knights, so they're a little bit more efficient in terms of cost versus production. But on the other side of that, it means they're going to be stretched very thin when you're raiding everywhere like Simtom is. Look at all of the little red circles signifying that Szalami is under attack. Simtom is absolutely everywhere right now. As long as he stays out of range of these very scary Loggia attack ships on the coast, he will be able to raid villagers endlessly in the backside of Szalami's base here, even going so far as to try and burn down the Kremlin right now.
And Szalami, all of Szalami's resources are up north. They're trying to take out these 3 or 4 knights over here by Simtom, but he ended up pulling 19 knights in order to do that. Now nothing is able to defend this south side, and this men-at-arms little conglomerate, this vanguard force here, taking this Kremlin down. At the same time, Simtom, going up with the Berkshire Palace to protect his docks just a little bit more. So you're right, he did exactly both things, making a Castle Age army and going up to Imperial. Szalami does not have the resources and ending up to do that. So these 19 knights, this little force here, better do some king-size damage if he wants to find a way back into this game.
That's the weakness of knights. Knights are incredibly strong, but you almost always want them to play together. So when they're not in great numbers, you don't really want to split them up and have them dealing with lots of different threats at once. So he baits the knights to the top of the field with a small villager raid, gets a handful of kills for his trouble, by the way. I think he picked up 4 or 5 villagers on the way. And then, while he's doing that, he takes the force in the south, pushes up and starts burning down landmarks using the men-at-arms that he has. Now, he is starting to lose some villagers of his own because there are knights all up in the base of the English, and they're taking down quite a few English villagers. He did go up with the Berkshire Palace, which is very good at defending if he should need it. But in terms of raw positioning, I like where Simtom is. He has a much bigger military, and he is actively sieging down the landmarks of his opponent. Villager kills will matter less and less as the landmarks fall, right? We have 2 landmarks are now down for the Rus. They have not gone up to Imperial Age, so there are only 3 landmarks. All Simtom has to do is find the high trade house and take it down, and he is the winner here on Mediterranean.
And you know the worst thing for Szalami, it's so deceiving because with these knights, he probably thought, you know what, I killed a lot of villagers here. Like, I feel like I did a good job with the knights that I have, and they're unfortunately going to meet their end as Simtom having some elite spearmen and some crossbowmen, and a lot of them are going down in the process. But economic count is still, you know, almost double in favor of Simtom. So Szalami, you know, yeah, because I kind of get baited by this too when I'm playing, is I kill some villagers, I'm thinking, oh, I'm doing really good. I'm still down by 30, but I'm doing pretty good.
Right? Now, I'm curious to see whether Simtom actually has eyes on the... Oh, not going to matter. I was going to see if he actually knew exactly where the high trade house was, if he could go up there and kill it, but it will not matter. Szalami sees the writing on the wall. GG is called, and we go to 1-1.
That is a 1-1.
Oh, no.
1-0, I'm sorry.
It's 1-0. I'm sorry. I thought we had played a game 1 already.
Ugh. It's like, but you know, a little bit is my fault because I didn't catch it, you know? Yeah, it is 1-0 in favor of Simtom. Hey, now, what's funny is because we said before, hey, if you want to learn how Rus does against English, you should watch Szalami's game in the back, you know, the first game that we watched to make sure, you know, you're doing the correct Rus things. On the other side of it, this is how you're going to play English in terms of Mediterranean. You know, you did a lot of stalemating. You let the game go to 35 minutes, and then you end up going Imperial. You get your enclosures. You know, you transition that food economy into that big landmass that they have, and then sometimes just ended up snowballing and, you know, avalanche this game. So now it's a 1-0 in favor of Simtom, and as we go into map 2, I gotta say, based on the look of this game, it seems like he had it from about the 18th minute going forward. I kind of like him in game 2. And we've got in the south here is Szalami. And who do we have in the north playing as the French?
It is Simtom in the green, and oh boy, am I excited to see green. I get a little tired of red versus blue. It's solid, but sometimes I like a little bit of variation. So I like that we get to see green versus blue right now. And also, as alluded to previously, it is not the Malians. This is Prairie. It is probably the most open map in the entire game. It is excellent. I actually love it very much. But it is going to be the Mongols. And let's talk for just a second about why Szalami picked the Mongols right here on Prairie over the Malians.
Sure. This is Prairie itself is a map that, as you can see based on it, we do have a nice Mongol spawn with the Uvu right next to his town center, making it a little bit defensible. But look at some of these gold patches here on the bottom, and then we have some all the way out to the east and the west and all of that kind of stuff. And what does that dictate? It means that your civ, number 1, has to be mobile, and number 2 has to establish map control early. And these two civs are the civs that can do that. For the French, they're able to do that if you give them a little bit of time to do that, getting the School of Cavalry, getting the Royal Knights and stuff in feudal age. The Mongols as a very good pick against the French because, as we see that barracks coming up for Szalami in the south, it means that a tower rush will be coming, and that villager, as it's done for the barracks, decides to make its long trek on the other side of the map to put a tower down where he sees fit.
And what that also means is that the Mongols able to pick up and move their buildings. So they're not having to rebuild their resource drop-off points for every time they have to pick up and move, which you have to do a lot here on Prairie. So their base can be mobile. Other people have to expand their bases to reach these other, you know, points of resources throughout the map. The Mongols can just move their base to where they need it. The other thing that makes the Mongols good here is that the Mongols' biggest weakness is that they cannot build walls. Nobody builds walls on Prairie because it's so open. I mean, I guess theoretically you can build walls, but it's hard and it's very expensive, so you don't see it very often. So Prairie mitigates one of the Mongols' biggest weaknesses and improves some of their biggest strengths. And speaking of strengths, holy cow, or I guess I should say holy sheep, look at all of these sheep. 31 sheep brought in just now by Szalami.
It doesn't get any better than that. I mean, especially for the Mongols, it makes sure that you don't need to put a pasture so early into the game. You know, you can save your wood to do other things like making towers. And what Szalami is doing, he is going the tower route as he should as the Mongols against French. And there is a nice tower spot which he has near the gold, near the wood. Does have a little bit of a micro error, however, and losing a spearman. As we check the range of vision here, obviously for Szalami, he's able to see Simtom go up with a tower of his own. But it looks like it will not be in the reach of the one villager trying to build the Mongolian tower.
This is the rub when you place down a defensive tower of your own. You want to place it in a position... Oh, hang on, excuse me. That's better. You want to place it in a position of your own where it's going to defend your villagers and your villagers won't get killed building it, but it also needs to be further forward enough that you stop the counter tower from going up, because you've spent money on this outpost and you're still pushed off this gold by the counter tower. So it doesn't do a lot for you. It's always a good idea for those who might be new, if you can get away with it, to put your tower in front of where your resources are being gathered, because it prevents this exact scenario where the counter tower still pushes your guys off the resource you were trying to gather.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not too crazy about counter towers in general, in terms of trying to combat a tower rush. Usually as somebody who does like to play French, like myself, a really standard defense against the tower rush, the first thing you do is get an archery range, as Simtom is doing. Make about 3 archers, making sure you're picking off some of the spearmen, and then you're going to be able to go into either horsemen or scouts or something like that, and then you'll be able to take down this Mongolian tower here before feudal age and before arrow slits come in, so you still have a lot of health on your units left. So the counter tower, I mean, to me it just seems like wood that he could have used making a couple archers instead, or getting the archery range up quicker.
It's true. It's not the most efficient use of resources you've ever seen in the world, especially because the French are now the ones on the aggressive. They got up to feudal. They got their school of cavalry out. That's exactly what they're looking for. In fact, going to pull a lot of villagers to burn down this outpost. Might even lose a couple of them in the process. I'm not sure if this is really worth it. I mean, I guess you'd like to have this gold back, but it's a lot of villager time spent burning down a few, burning down outposts, and you're going to lose a couple of them along the way. It looked like 2 died. So the French, like I was saying, though, now on the aggressive. They've got their school of cavalry out. They can begin raiding with their knights once they get them out. And because the spearmen are forward for Szalami, the Mongols have absolutely no defense here, aside from the outposts in which they can hide a couple villagers. That is their one place they are able to protect themselves. Going up, though, with the silver tree. This is not the deer stones. Today is the day of off-meta landmarks, Tim. Let's talk about this one.
And I think you would be surprised how meta the silver tree is nowadays. This is like, a lot of people are like kind of abandoning the deer stones here, and just because of how good trade has been ever since traders have had some decreased cost. And for Mongols, it makes a lot of sense, right? You establish a lot of map control in Dark Age with your tower rush. You make this French player stay so focused on his base, where now behind it, you're just going to start trading with a neutral trading post, and Szalami with a good spawn for this trading post because it's super safe in the south.
The only reason that I'm a little... So trade is great. Trade is amazing. Everyone should be trading more in their games than they are right now. I just want to say that before I start my train of thought. Right? Trade is busted. Everyone should be trading. If you're not trading, you're throwing. That's out the window for 1 second, though. The only thing that gives me pause for thought about this trade is that France is one of the most mobile civs in the game in terms of their units, right? They want to build knights. Knights are fast. Knights shut down trade very well. And this is prairie. It's really hard to wall. It's really hard to keep your trade safe. So I see a world in which this does not go well for Szalami, and he spends all game getting his traders killed by super mobile knights that he can't shut down.
And that is a good factor, which the Mongols do have a good counter to that if they chose to do Mangudai in order to get down some of those Royal Knights. Sometimes they do in a pack of 5 or 6, and you'd be surprised how well they can kite knights around. He's going for the rather aggressive / defensive strategy, though, and pulling villagers to either corner of the map and walling them, so traders can't get to them. Obviously, when you're playing a civ that's not the French, it's a little bit easier to do in Dark Age, but just because you're dealing with that tower rush, and French have rather difficulty in terms of trying to combat the tower rush. Takes a lot of resources for them, so he's not able to get this wall done on the south side, and Szalami being able to put an outpost there to make sure he is not able to. But overall, this would be the meta strategy for players going up against trade, is just walling that.
There's a lot of villagers coming forward into enemy troops. Looks like they're going to be dropping a town center. Maybe a little aggressive. Might lose a couple of them there. But for the time being, it looks like all the enemies are actually focused on killing this archer. Town center now going up, but yeah, some villagers are going to drop here. This might have been a little ambitious for Simtom to try and drop a town center this far forward when he knew enemy troops were in the area. Going to be losing at least a couple villagers, having to stab away with their shivs there. There's a trying to run away, not going to happen. Another villager going to go down, now trying to get the scout involved to kill the Khan so that he can keep this town center continuing to construct. It will go up, but the price will be paid for it, and Simtom is down by 5 villagers now.
Yeah, this is insane in terms of this town center. Like, it is out in the middle of nowhere. It's not really getting too many important resources. I mean, yeah, a little bit of wood and a little bit of stone, but there are safer wood patches over here from Simtom. So I know we're on prairie, and I know map control is important, and the town center having a defensive structure gives him a little bit of stronghold, but Szalami's got about almost 900 food and almost enough gold that he needs to castle. So I don't know how long this town center is going to end up staying up, because French usually hangs out in feudal longer than most civs.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about it as well. I mean, I guess the idea, I can see the thought process behind this town center. It's I secure stone, I secure wood, I get a sacred site, right? And I have a nearby mill I can drop that gets me deer and a boar, right? So there's a lot of stuff nearby that is safe because you drop this town center. So I like it on one hand, but on the other hand, it is so far forward, and you paid a heavy cost to get it up in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That is it going to stay up long enough to pay itself off? I don't know.
And I mean, we're gonna find out in the next minute or two, because Szalami's gonna be going up very soon. He's going to be able to hit that button, and he basically hasn't made much in terms of military units. I mean, he's made a few spearmen, and that's been pretty much it. And surprisingly, that's more than enough that he needed in terms of getting these traders going and getting them to where they need to be. Now he's going up with the step redoubt with 15 villagers. I don't know what the French are going to be able to do against something like Castle Age Lancers from the Mongols, especially with a town center that close.
Yeah, it's strange. Simtom made a big point of going up fast with the School of Cavalry, and then I felt like didn't produce any knights.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what the French do. You go up to feudal, you build knights, you raid with them. I just felt like we hardly saw any of that. Maybe we just missed it. Maybe they were all shut down. I'm not sure what the true cause was, but I feel like the raiding we're supposed to see, supposed to, quote unquote, out of the French in the feudal age just never came through.
And that little bit of disruption by that first tower in Dark Age, God, that throws off timing so much. Coming from a French player myself, you can't get that first knight out. You're doing things like building an archery range way too early than you usually do. It just ends up throwing things off so much. And we're seeing that in Simtom because he's got 2 Royal Knights queued. He's got 2 stables now. The second one of the game just ends up popping, and we're at 12 minutes.
Bright spot for Simtom is that Szalami's trade that he spent a lot of time and energy trying to get online is not going great. He is kind of trying to trade with a neutral market on the side of the map, along with his own silver tree that he's moved down to the trade post in the south. But the walls have come up that have kind of disrupted trade, and there was a wolf chasing him. Like, they spent a lot of time with no result still yet for these traders. This is, I don't know, 500, 600 resources in these 8 traders here that so far has netted Szalami nothing.
Mm-hmm. Now that they dropped off, however, he's going to be able to use that gold, and there is a Royal Knight over here at this trader caravan, I guess I should say, going there on the north side and the south. But now that Szalami did have a little bit of trade drop-off, he made a couple archery ranges, he's made some barracks going with 2x men-at-arms and men-at-arms, and then going with crossbows as well. We're going to see a Castle Age army that can produce faster than the Feudal Age army of French. So even though, yeah, the traders, you know, they didn't drop off a bunch of times by now, and we're going to get ready to eclipse the 14th minute, I think that one drop-off was kind of what he needed to get the ball rolling.
I missed, so I just want to apologize. I did miss that first drop-off. I thought that these traders had still yet to drop off at all.
Oh, I see.
That's
okay.
why, but they had dropped off once, so you're right. There was a payoff that did give Szalami the resources he needs to immediately throw down a ton of production and get himself up to Castle Age. So I really like his position right now. The French are nowhere near Castle Age. Like, it's still 3 or 4 minutes away at best. That's if eco is idled and nothing is built in the time being, right? So in the short term, all of the advantages lie with the Mongols. They have more troops, they have better troops, they can afford to produce them better. So I do think that this town center we saw dropped in the middle is not very long for this world.
No, and I mean, it does make sense why they're not up to castle, because I mean the knights are so expensive, you know. And I mean, you took a lot of resources going for the second town center, and to be honest, for the French playing against the Mongols, I don't know what the right strategy is, and I'm not going to sit and pretend like I do, because this is a bad matchup for the French player, and I think Simtom's doing the best he can, trying to disrupt trade, trying to get an economic lead at the same time. It just seems like he's stretched rather thin in all of the departments, so he's not really doing anything.
Yeah, he spent a lot of resources building knights, like you mentioned. Those knights are doing a decent job at shutting down trade. A handful of traders have gone down, but in return, he's going to lose the second town center that he spent so much time and energy getting up. Szalami has been on one base this whole time, where Simtom has been able to produce out of 2 town centers for a little while, but the military advantage is so huge for the Mongols that I don't see that economy ever being able to pay off in the long term. Economy, you know, is kind of a good metric, if you will, for how far somebody is ahead in the long term. And military is how far you are ahead in the short term. And yeah, that economy is never going to pay fruition because the military is just so far ahead in the short term, and that, you know, Tom recognizes that, and GG gets called.
Right. All right. And what was the most important thing about that town center going down was the Mongols gaining the map control. And we talked about it in the first couple minutes of this map, how important it is for in Prairie to get map control, because at the end of the game that we saw different gold mines, you know, Simtom going over to random gold mines and, you know, different wood patches and all that kind of stuff. If you don't have map control, those are just dead villagers. Like, inevitably, they're going to be dead villagers. So this economic count, this villager count, even though it's favored in the way of Simtom because of that second town center, I mean, it was just a matter of time before it drops off the face of the earth.
Yeah. The economy, you know, it only gets you so far if there's, you know, enemy soldiers burning down your base and killing your villagers in the meantime. So Szalami really able to use trade to force Simtom to kind of reach further than he could really realistically achieve. Got himself in a little bit over his head, building knights, trying to shut down the trade. They didn't get enough done. He lost a lot of them. Couldn't respond to the Castle Age up of Szalami, and, you know, we're 1-1. Simple as that.
No, that was a oh yeah, because Simtom won game 1. Oh my god. Yes, it is 1-1. Short story, to make a long story short, yes. I agree. But here we go. We're coming at you with game 3, and let me see here. So what we have in the, hold on, as I'm trying to change the colors around. There we go. So who we have on the northwestern side of the map, playing as the Chinese, who we talked about for about a minute or two, so with good timing, is Simtom. And who do we have spawning in the south here?
In the south, playing in the blue, it's Szalami on his dreaded Malians. Ooh, Simtom has got it all to do right now. Now, he's using the Chinese, right? Chinese are good. We just got done talking about that. So if there's a Civ that can do it, it's the Chinese. But oh, Salami's scary when he gets the Malians.
He this Farimba garrison fast castle, I think against China is a very good strategy just because of how long it takes for the Chinese to really get going and get ramping in terms of Song Dynasty and all that kind of stuff. But as we take a look at this map, the one important thing that we gotta see are these little patches of water here, both of which on a corner for each one of these players, and then there's one on the northwest side, which is more of a quote-unquote neutral water. So I'm curious to see, because Malians don't usually play on naval maps, I'm curious to see if any of these two players actually take the water. Do you have any predictions?
I mean, I expect to see maybe a dock or two thrown down, but not much more beyond that. I don't expect to see a large, like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if all we saw was a mill and some villagers taking shorefish. In fact, yeah, I think that's probably more realistic than a dock. I would be surprised to see a dock. I think of mill and some shorefish is gonna be all the water play we'll see from either of these civs right here.
See, for China and Malians, it's tough. China is a good water civilization on a map like Mediterranean or Boulder Bay, say, because of their ability to supervise some of their lumber camps, and what those imperial officials can do is getting those resources and spawning them essentially out of nothing, whereas villagers drop off 10, you get 12 instead. If I was playing something like a French who needs map control, I would just put a second town center on one of these spots to get some shoreline fish and get some food stability, make yourself like a little proxy base in that particular area. Chinese, when they're going to put a second town center, they usually put it right next to their home. Malians don't necessarily do too much in second town centers in terms of fast castle, but it looks like Szalami is abandoning that fast castle strategy and going for Mansa Quarry instead.
Well, I don't necessarily know if this means he's abandoning the fast castle strategy. What this Mansa Quarry does that the Sultanani trade network does not do. Wait, no, that's not. That's the Ottomans. What's the other one called? Is it the Sultanani trade?
Yeah, it's
I can't remember.
There's Sultani trait and then the Twin Minaret.
Oh no, sorry. Ottomans. What's the other Ottoman and Malian landmark called? The one that's basically a toll outpost.
Oh, the Sultanani, or the I'm sorry, the trade network.
Anyway.
Yeah, whatever.
The trade one.
The Saharan trade network, I think.
Saharan. There we go. It's Saharan. Yes.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Please continue.
So, the Saharan trade network is necessary to build when you're fast castling as the Malians into somebody like the HRE or like the English, somebody who's going to push you, right? Chinese probably aren't going to do that. Chinese want to build this slow. They want to get Song Dynasty. They want to maybe get another town center. So you can go for the Mansa Quarry and get yourself a little bit of extra eco without necessarily having to, go for that defense, because you have, you've got that assured knowledge that the Chinese probably aren't going to push you in the first couple minutes. So you have a little bit more time to do exactly what Salami's doing here, which is throw it in the stable, get out some very early warrior scouts, protect yourself just a little bit, and then go for kind of a semi-fast castle. That's something we generally tend to see a lot in Age of Empires 3. What they used to call it a semi-fast fortress. This fortress is the third age in Age of Empires 3. And you would go up to the second age, you'd build a handful of units to keep yourself safe, and then you would go up quickly to the third age after that. And I expect that's what we're going to see here from Szalami.
I think Salami's going to have a little bit of a battle on his hands sooner than he would want to, however, because Simtom pulled just about half his villagers, 12 villagers, to build a Barbican of the Sun, and that Barbican's trying to blind Somalian villagers with that sun.
Honestly, I don't know how I feel about this Barbican. It doesn't do a lot. It doesn't push him off of gold. It doesn't push him off of wood. He just moved his villagers a little bit farther north. I guess it facilitates this outpost rush, so you can then drop a second outpost slightly safer. But
yeah, I mean,
don't know.
it's good for the second. It's good for another tower to get some kind of defensive. It's right near Szalami's production, which is nice. I'm not sure if Simtom actually scouted that, but I think maybe Simtom was expecting a fast castle, and that's why he put a Barbican here, because it could have been, you know, to the point where Szalami can't just naked fast castle as the Malians. You have all these towers surrounding your base. You have to do something about it. But with this Barbican, it's going to create a little bit of a stronghold with him, and the fact that he is Song Dynasty now. Maybe we see some archery ranges around this Barbican, maybe a proxy Zugnu rush, perhaps.
An interesting idea. I would like to see that. We don't see proxies in Age of Empires in terms of like an early rush type proxies as often as we used to in StarCraft, and I still think they're really cool and fun to watch. So I would love to see that, to be perfectly honest, just for a little bit of variety in the regular Chinese play. But they are going to get a couple of these outposts up. So the outpost rush is alive and well, which I guess was really the main goal of this Barbican rush, was to kind of turn it into an outpost rush, contain the Malians, force them to play a little bit outside their comfort zone, which I definitely feel like Szalami is currently doing. The only problem is that the outposts in their current positions aren't actually stopping Szalami from taking anything that he wants to take. Like, he can still go just straight up to castle right now. These outposts are annoying, but that's it. They're not stopping him from taking any of the resources he needs.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Because this first pit mine is relatively untouched, actually exactly untouched. The Barbican and those outposts do prevent a second close pit mine, but the problem is Szalami has a villager all the way on the east side, and then just go ahead and put his houses around here, so he has a second pit mine generating that much gold. So now I'm at the point where I'm agreeing with you, because this Barbican, yeah, it was cheeky, yeah, it was cool, it was something to talk about, but in terms of the effectiveness of, you know, trying to get in the way of a fast castle, it's not going to happen. There's the Farimba right now.
Yeah, Farimba coming down, which is exactly what, you know, Simtom was trying to prevent. That you build this trying to stop the Farimba from going up, and here we are. It's up anyway. The villagers are a little bit exposed on the north side, but it's so funny. Szalami just continues to push them a little bit further north every single time. Now that he sees the villagers in the area, all these villagers, what are they doing? They're just walking to their deaths. It's a massacre.
Yet didn't pick the best route in terms of pathing, typical AoE 4 pathing that we see. But it looks like half the villagers from Simtom going down on that side. Decent enough with Song Dynasty pumping out villagers just about every 15 seconds instead of the 13 usually, from the fact that they got nerfed. So it does have a little bit of an upgrade in that regard. But he's doing a good job idling Szalami's villagers. I saw 13 in that town center for a considerable amount of time. The problem is, as soon as this Farimba garrison goes up because of all of this passive gold, he's going to be able to pump out 5 of whatever he wants as soon as it gets built.
Yeah, the Mansa Quarry is, you know, we've seen a lot of the Saharan Trade Network, but so the Mansa Quarry has been a little less popular in this kind of build that Szalami likes to do. But this is extra gold. It hasn't gone to stone. He's not throwing down a second town center. It's extra gold that he's going to use to just throw down even more units from this Farimba garrison. So, with the villager count being roughly equal and there being absolutely nothing to defend here for the Chinese, I expect Simtom is in a little bit of trouble right now. Like, he doesn't have any outposts at home. He doesn't even have a military production building thrown down yet. He's just now going to drop his second town center, which can shoot, but there's not a lot to stop something like javelin throwers from running in with their pierce armor and just throwing lots of arrows at these weak, unprotected villagers.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly right, and that's why I think javelin throwers, me personally, are the Malians' best unit because of their ability to beat their counter and do things like one-tap horsemen. So even if a production building was made for Simtom, he would need to mass a decent amount of horsemen to contest this. But that second town center, I do agree, it's pretty late. It's going to take a while for it to actually get up. The Musafati warriors, now that they're amassing, we're going to get to about 10 pretty soon as it just hit the button, and the fact that they're able to stealth means they're still going to take some good damage towards these villagers, and I really don't like what Simtom's doing here.
One bright spot for him is that he has walled up a good chunk of the map. So he's not completely walled, but this will force Szalami to kind of make some revolutions of the map as he tries to find his way through to the enemy base, which will buy Simtom some time. He doesn't have much, but he's got some thanks to these walls that he's thrown down. So we'll see. You know, he doesn't want to run his units under this Barbican for obvious reasons, so he's going to want to go north. And that's going to involve him running all the way north up to this pond. So there is some time being bought here. But the Musafati are now underneath the Chinese town center, burning down one of those outposts. Now, they do not have... It's sometimes kind of tempting to compare Musafati warriors to men-at-arms because they kind of take up that same place. They are not. They have 0 pierce armor. So they cannot run underneath these arrow structures and do any sort of raiding, or they will be eaten alive. Just got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and especially with a group of 5 of them, whether they have their stealth activated or otherwise, by the time they get under a town center, especially with that Chinese town center having the hand cannoneer slits, instead of the normal arrows, it does even more damage for them. But Simtom going the way of the long game, perhaps, still not making any military units, and still being okay with taking on some of these raids. It looks like there's a decent amount of villagers going down. There's 2 villagers that IO might not be safe, but they end up retreating a little bit to the west, trying to get an outpost down, and because the Chinese build at insane speeds, this outpost is going to go up at the loss of 1 villager. But what Simtom is also doing on the south side is walling up this neutral trading post for Szalami, which is probably the only trading post he can get to safely, as the other one's in the northeast behind Simtom's base. And like I said before, in one of the first Mali games that we saw, for Mali, they use this fast castle and then transition to trade in the Imperial Age, and that's where their economy gets out of control. They're not going to be able to do that in terms of this trading post until they take down those walls.
Which is annoying. And the good and the bad of this is that these walls are not going to prevent the trade forever. It will require some form of response if Szalami wants to trade. But what it does do is it slows the trade down for 1, and for 2, Simtom will know. As soon as trade begins, he has to know because these have to be burned down. So it's an early detection system more than anything else about trade. This prevents a situation where Szalami trades for 20 minutes and then Simtom goes, where's he getting all these resources? Oh my goodness, he's been trading this whole time.
Right.
He's going to know about it ahead of time this way. So it's less to do a full prevention and more as, like I said, an early detection system. So that is going to be helpful. The bad thing is that now that Szalami is up to the 3rd age and has a trebuchet out, this attempted outpost rush and the contain on the south side is done. This Barbican's going down. These outposts are going down. Map control is definitely going over to Szalami now that he can't, keep Szalami penned in his... Simtom can't keep Szalami penned in his base anymore.
Right, and Simtom obviously doesn't care about this, right? I mean, he still only has 1 military unit. So he's okay with these towers going down and the Barbican going down. But there was a good question in chat also, which was, what about Zug Nu against China? And I want to ask your opinion. If he did go with a bunch of archer ranges, went for a Zug Nu feudal force, do you think it would have did well for him?
I don't hate it. And here's why. The Mali do not get a horseman. They have warrior scouts, which are similar, but not quite the same. They have javelin throwers, which are really good against Zug Nu. But if you had gone full feudal and tried to get the Zug Nu out before javelin throwers reach a really powerful critical mass, it could have worked. But what you can't do is you can't do this tower rush into the Zug Nu. It has to be one or the other. You don't have enough resources in enough time in order to do both.
Right.
So by the time the Barbican was thrown down, Simtom had made his choice, and it was too late to do the other one at that point.
Right.
So I think your bet is made at that point, and it's too late.
Yeah, I do like Zug Nu against Mali in a timing aspect. If he didn't do this Barbican and then put the archery ranges and went for a Zug Nu, I think that would have been a good idea, because then Szalami has to break out of his fast castle and scramble and get archery ranges and then get javelin throwers and all that kind of stuff. But as soon as javelin throwers do come out and they have the economy to sustain them, the Zug Nu just basically, just don't. Because javelin throwers, they come with 3 ranged armor. And then in the veteran, they're at 4. So
the timing that you have to hit and it's a difficult play, which is why I don't think Simtom went for it. But there is a timing, and I'm sure someone way smarter than me will figure out how exactly to hit this timing. But there's a timing. Oh wow! I didn't feel like the game was over that quickly. Simtom feeling like it was all over. There was a battering ram pushing down one of his outposts, but I think with the transition into some military, there was maybe a world in which Simtom could have kept himself alive there. He decides better of it, though, and is going to throw in the towel, giving Szalami the 2 wins and the clear up to move forward. He wins 2-1 in this best-of-3 series over Simtom.
And I'm going to tell you, just because you said I'm not really sure why, but what I can show you is because of this villager count. There were so many, as we saw on the screen, Musafati warriors taking down... Oops. Taking down, trying to protect against that ram, and their fortified outpost that was there were a lot of villagers went down in the making of that, to the point where the second town center from Song Dynasty meant absolutely nothing. So he spent a lot of time trying to wall around trade and do all of these things for the late game, but now that second town center isn't going to pay off in the late game because of how many villagers went down, he would have lost the late game anyway.
I see. I totally missed that. I was so busy talking about unimportant, unrelated things. So thank you for pointing that out for my own edification, if not at least for the viewers, because I'm sure they all saw it and they're like, "What are you talking about, idiot?"
Yeah, there's no Zugnu here. What are you talking about? No, but that was a good question in chat, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit. But yeah, you're right. Szalami with the 2-1, taking down Simtom, and he will be moving on to one of the number 1 seeds in the semi-finals. And just for a good time, we'll take a look at the military count. Obviously, with Szalami going up into Castle Age, using that Farimba garrison and just Farimbaing all the way to the top and getting a military count near 50, is going to end up snowballing the game for him in the fact for Musafati. So, a good fast castle by Szalami. Not the first time we've seen it. Certainly not the last.
No, still, as of today, the Mali Farimba fast castle is currently undefeated. Gonna wait to see if anybody has an answer for it as we enter the later stages of the day. But for now, yeah, Szalami moves on, and Simtom is unfortunately going to be defeated in this one. Just a little bit too greedy, stretched himself too thin, trying to take care of all the different angles that he thought Szalami could possibly punish him. That he ended up just stretched, like I said, stretched too thin. Doesn't work out for him.
See, but this is the issue with the Barbican rush that I have, is because you're thinking, well, the way he put it, he was still able to get his food and the cattle, and he still that gold pit mine was pretty much untouched. So if he put it on the east side of his base, then he just makes a pit mine on the west gold. You know what I mean? So like it doesn't change anything. It seems like wherever you put it is bad, so it's probably not do it at all, right?
Yeah, like I said, as soon as I saw it go down, I kind of raised an eyebrow. I was like, I don't know about this Barbican rush. I didn't like the positioning. I didn't like the timing. I didn't feel like it was going to result in much, no matter how you shook it out. So I think that was kind of a gamble that Simtom took, and I don't think it paid out well for him at all.
Right.
We want to thank our MetaPlace website subscribers. Your contribution helps us keep the project sustainable. As we reach higher subscription goals, you are helping us cover more and more behind-the-scenes costs, such as video editing. Check out our subscription page using the link in the description, and remember to collect your perks. We will see you the next time.